This is the final word, T20 World Cup Daily, sort of day 23. Technically, the episode's going to say day 23. You may know that this is being recorded on day 24 because it was too emotional and intense an evening to do it at the time. We are having an intense experience because we're literally in a tent right now to get out of the wind in St Lucia. Geoff Lemon and Henry Moeran of Test Match Special, who is joining me to talk about South Africa West Indies. Last night it was late. It was it drew everybody in as the game went on. Could you try to sum up some of that in 30 seconds?
Yes, West Indies removed for a below par total. Andre Russell run out at a crucial moment when he had just hit 2 sixes. Then we had the situation that saw early wickets in the South Africa run chase. Then the rain came and it seemed to reset things. We thought, are we ever going to get back on? The game got reduced to 17 overs aside. 123 was a target. South Africa kept on losing wickets. It looked like it was going to go right down to the wire, but in the end, Marco Jansen, 21 or 14 balls, played very nicely, looked quite relaxed, all things considered, and looked as though the memories of South African failures of yesteryear did not bother him one jot. South Africa through, West Indies out, group toppers South Africa.
Maybe he's just too young. Maybe he's of a different generation to not remember the tension, but everybody else remembered the tension. As you might say, my giddy aunt. It felt this whole way through this South African chase. It felt like, well, they're not going to cock it up. They shouldn't, but they could because they're the kind of team that could. Chasing 135, you're like, well, obviously they should win this. But the back end of the West Indies batting innings did give the impression it was quite difficult to score out there. It was quite difficult to get going out there, and so there was that anxiety and that tension that you're like, well, if a couple fall and then a couple do fall. I mean, the first over's expensive, right? And maybe we'll look at the chase first. The first over that Akil Hussain bowls goes for 3 boundaries to Quentin de Kock, and then Andre Russell takes 2 wickets in the second over. Gets Reza Hendricks feathering one down the leg side to Kock out to square leg. Then it rains. And then it comes back, and it's this push and pull the whole way through where there's an expensive over in terms of runs, and then there's a parsimonious over with wickets being taken, sort of one end to the other.
It was so bizarre, wasn't it? And it sort of felt like every single time it looked so South Africa had got the job done, something would happen. And you said it, I remember we were watching the game, and we'd planned, every single time it looked like a game was over, I was like, right, go to bed, go. And then something would happen. And you said exactly this, you said, well, Tristan Stubbs just needs to knock it around, but I bet you next ball he does something stupid. He launched it down the ground to long on with a runner ball needed, gets himself caught on the boundary and makes the whole situation stressful for South Africa. But in the end, they managed to get over the line. And that could be crucial for them because that's the sort of game that previously they would have lost and could have lost. But they, remarkably in this tournament, South Africa have won every single game, but none of them, bar the England match, you feel has been all that convincing.
Even that one they could have lost towards the end.
Easy, absolutely.
They've got the Bartman over where he bowls all the full tosses. There are the bits where you go, hang on, they're falling apart here under some pressure in the chase. Livingston's hitting sixes. You know, it did, and Harry Brook was batting as well as he did. It did feel like they were going to cough that game up too.
Yeah, and it's an extraordinary thing when a side seems to stumble its way to an unbeaten record. But they've been, you look at the facts, they've been unbeaten in this tournament. They've got a side that's got a fearsome bowling attack on their day. I was a little disappointed with their spin attack yesterday. I thought that is much vaunted, but I'm not sure necessarily, though there were 3 wickets for Tabraiz Shamsi, I'm not sure necessarily it was 3 wickets where you feel he was dominating in the way that we've seen maybe Adil Rashid dominate, or Adam Zampa at times in this tournament. Maybe I'm being harsh, but it felt like it was a game where wickets were given to bowlers rather than bowlers getting players out.
Well, I think Shamsi played on the tension. He played on the need to get moving for West Indies. So maybe, okay, I'm jumping around innings here, but I'm going to do this because I want to come back to the chase at the end. So West Indies shake up their opening combination. Obviously, Brandon King's injured. They leave Johnson Charles out to squeeze in the extra bowling option. So they've got Mayers opening with Hope. Hope's out first ball, smacks one to cover, nice shot, gets caught. Nick Moeran batting at 3 is out for 1, and so then there's this, it falls on Mayers, who's opening there with Roston Chase, just to hold things together really, and they couldn't be too aggressive. They put on a partnership of 81, but it takes them a fair while to do that. They bat until the sort of end of the 12th over when Mayers finally tries to hit out, and it's Shamsi who he's trying to hit out against. And Shamsi was bowling, I thought he used the situation cleverly enough, Shamsi, because he bowled quite slowly. He threw the ball up there, other hand of course, if you're watching me wave my right hand around ineffectually, but he bowled wide of the stumps at times, and had the ball, was using that turn that he could get out of that Antigua pitch. So he's able to draw those kind of shots. Roston Chase gets out similarly, trying to smash Shamsi for 52. And then Maharaj gets in on the axe. Suddenly there's a couple of cheap ones. Powell is out for one, the captain, and he's such an aggressive hitter of the ball. Rutherford comes in, batting a spot higher than he might normally, and he's out for a duck. And then it's Russell. And how just this moment, I remember seeing this moment, you and I sitting there watching it. Russell flat batting Nortje over deep mid-wicket for 6, having just belted him down the ground for 6, a shot that had no right to go for 6. It looked like a slice. It looked like a top half of the bat slice trying to go over the offside. Somehow it carried down the ground. He's hit the first 2 balls of the over for 6, and then he gets a sharp Yorker in at his heels, outside leg stump. He squeezes it out down to fine leg and he takes the 1. And I was saying to you at the time, why are you, it's what, the 16th over at this point? Why are you taking the 1 to put Hussain on strike? And Hussain then sort of blocks a couple, can't score, takes a single off the last ball of the over, which means he keeps the strike, which means Russell goes for a desperate run first ball of the next over to try to get strike back and gets run out in so doing. Imagine if he stays there for another over, or imagine if he just faces the rest of the Nortje over as someone who is good enough to use that pace to hit it for 6 instead of tucking it up for 0 or 1.
And that's always the way in low-scoring games, isn't it? You go back to those marginal moments where you think one player scores another boundary, one player maybe even stays in for another over or 2, and it could add 15 or 20 runs, and it changes the game entirely. And you could see when Andre Russell walked off the field, he was so angry, so upset, and he would have been replaying that single time and time again, because Akeal Hussain, he's a capable batter, but he's not a hitter. He's not somebody that is going to take away the threat of a fast bowler like Henrik Nortje in the way that Andre Russell can. And that was the huge difference between the two sides in the end. It was just those little moments where you felt that West Indies, perhaps the occasion got to them because it was a highly charged, highly intense atmosphere, given the fact that Sir Vivian Richards Stadium, Viv had been out there before the game, geeing the crowd up. West Indies know that the opportunity to get through to the semi-finals in a home World Cup is a huge one, with a side that have got this real spirit of the Darren Sammy sides of 2012, 2016. He's coach as well. And you just felt that all the momentum was with them in the early parts of the group stages and the way that they entered the Super 8. And then to have fallen away as they did, I think is a real frustration for West Indies, because they're a side that I think could have gone on and lifted this trophy. Perhaps South Africa, the stronger team, when you look at the comparative bowling attacks, especially. I think West Indies bowling, particularly when it comes to seam bowling, has been perhaps the area where it's just not quite been strong enough. Yeah,
but it was the spinners who got whacked the other night. Last night, Alzarri Joseph, important. He comes in and hits a 6 late, gets them up to 135, and I was thinking like 145. I'd be pretty bullish about West Indies here, but 135 just felt a little bit too few. But South Africa made it look like enough at a few different points.
And I should say, in terms of seam bowling attack, Alzarri Joseph is the absolute outlier, because he's been a superstar in this World Cup. It's when they've had to turn to other options that it's not necessarily felt like it's been strong enough. Obed McCoy is somebody on his day, is absolutely outstanding. He's got the back of the hand slower ball. He's a very dangerous operator. He just didn't have a good day, and the fact that his first over was so expensive and the first ball of his second over got pumped for 6 to lose the game, it sort of summed things up a little bit. And they opened the bowling with the spin, 3 boundaries in that first over, and you felt at that point for West Indies, okay, where do they turn?
They rely on Akeal Hussain with his left arm spin so much, and so he comes back after the rain break with Markram and Stubbs batting, and they take him. They're fairly harsh on him as well. I think he goes for 7 off his next over and another 10 or so off the one after that. He's 30 or 31 off his first 3 overs, and they don't go back to him after that. That's important. Gudakesh Moti's been really significant for them, but after Markram gets out, he tries to hit Alzarri Joseph down the ground, gets caught at mid-off. Klaasen comes in and takes down an over from Moti. Over-pitch first ball, smack down the ground for 6, and then there's 3 boundaries. One's a bit lucky where he carves it. Remember the one carved through backward point that's nearly caught, nearly a screamer. And then there's one flicked away through fine leg, which is a bad ball down the leg side. And there's what would normally be a decent left armer's delivery turning away outside off stump, but there's no short third around fine enough. There's nobody fine enough to try to cut that off. It's an outside edge as he slashes. So 3 boundaries in a row. It took 20 off the over, I think. And I mean, it just made all the difference in a chase when things got tight towards the end.
Yeah, and Moti and Hussain were the much vaunted duo that were going to cause teams problems, particularly teams with lots of right-handers in them. And you look at their combined figures, 4 overs, none for 51. I mean, that's a real problem in a low-scoring game, isn't it? Andre Russell, by the way, was outstanding. He really was, and I thought that his 2 for 19 was absolutely almost game-winning. He'll just be forgetting that and thinking about that run.
Well, he'll be thinking about the run, but yeah, his first over where he takes the 2, but then he comes back after that. Moti over is expensive, and so Joseph bowls the over after that and goes for 3, I think, and then Russell comes back into the attack. He's bowling overs that are going for 3 or 4. He's using the cutters. He's digging the ball into the pitch. Joseph ends up getting Klaasen caught behind, and then it's David Miller out there, 4 off 14 deliveries, as he just wasn't sure what to do. They bring Roston Chase on to bowl some slingy spin.
He was brilliant, Roston Chase, and it's fantastic with the bat, fantastic with the ball, and to think that he was someone at the early stage of the tournament they were thinking, well, is he worth his place in the side? I mean, he's almost worth his place in the side for his bowling alone, because nobody finds him easy to get away.
No, and so he bowls the one to Miller that skids through. It's quick, it's flat, it skips on, it bowls Miller as he goes back to try to cut, and suddenly West Indies are cock a hoop, and everybody is jumping up and down about it in St Lucia, and South Africa are looking nervous, and then you've got Jansen. Well, then Stubbs hits the one down the ground and ends up getting himself caught off the bowling of Chase as well, and then it's Chase who gets Maharaj too when Maharaj tries to hit one. I think it's sort of late in and over, and he's like, oh well, it's pretty much a free hit here, I might as well have a swing. So he gets caught down the ground, and they're needing about a dozen off the last 2 overs, and it's pretty tense. So it comes down to a point of 9 required off the last 7 balls, and this is after it was Jansen, wasn't it, who was nearly bowled by Chase. The ball goes through, misses leg stump by an inch.
Yeah, if that, and also in doing so, it flicks the gloves of Nicholas Moeran. They run through for 2 as well. Yeah. So it's just those marginal, such tiny moments, and then that final ball of that over, Kagisa Rabada hits for 4. That opens things up for Jansen to have such freedom, not to really take a risk. In the end, he does take a bit of a risk in smacking the ball down the ground for 6, but it is less of a sort of stressy risk to take, because at that point it's less than a runner ball. Even if somebody comes in, you'd bat them to at least get you those runs that you need in that final over. So it's tiny fractions, it's margins. It's Andre Russell run out by 2 inches. It's 1 inch missing that leg stump. It's tiny, and that's why we love this game. It's particularly in low-scoring matches. It is those tiny margins.
Poor old Chase here, the one that just misses. And if he bowls a dot ball, last ball of the 19th, if that's a dot, when they've turned back to him, then it's 9 off the last 6, pressures on Jansen, all the rest of it. But yeah, 5 off the last 6, a little easier. He hits that 6, they win it. South Africa are through. Quick break, then the Hall of Fame. It is the final word. T20 World Cup Daily is brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. This one might be relevant to you, Henry. Was somebody's happiness and sense of self too closely aligned with a football team that's so conservative that even Jacob Rees-Mogg thinks they need to turn it down a notch? Well, football might not be coming home, but you can get a whole bunch of stuff that is coming home in Westfield London's home quarter. From the timeless Italian style of Natuzzi to the timeless British style of heels, you'll find so much style that transcends the slow, inevitable march of time in every store. And if watching England's footballing capitulation also feels slow and inevitable, you might as well watch it from a fancy Italian leather couch. Westfield London. Buy a table, then go rock climbing. You've not been overjoyed by the football that you've been watching in the Euro so far, have you?
Not as yet, no, but it's early stages, and I think it's one of those things where everybody says, keep calm, and nobody's keeping calm, because I think, without wishing to get too boring and too into the details of the football and a cricket podcast, it has looked a little lackluster, rudderless, confused, and a side doesn't really know what they're doing, and I think that is, and it's always a worry, but things can turn quickly. Let's not forget, in this Cricket World Cup, we've seen sides struggling and finding their way back into it. There's plenty of time for England's brave boys to get back on track.
What hasn't been rudderless has been games, including the one last night where David Rudder turned out to sing his song Rally Round the West Indies live. Beautiful moment. So that deserves to get a gig in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to say, Alzarri Joseph's spell just in general, where he just never gives anything away. His face is complete granite. But particularly the ball to Klaasen, the bouncer to Klaasen, and the Nicholas Moeran catch. Remembering that Moeran's already let 5 wides go through his hands when a bouncer was above the head, and that gets away to the boundary. The catch he has to take off Klaasen, good bumper, nasty, cramps him up. It skews off the edge, almost a short fine leg, and Moeran running back, looking back over his shoulder. But that is a tough wicket-keeping catch, and he hangs on to it under pressure, and the celebrations were massive. The entire Joseph spell was brilliant. He barely gave anything away, but that particular wicket-taking ball and that particular catch.
For me, I'm going to chuck in something in terms of whether we were watching the game, which was when we were at the hotel bar getting drawn in, and you do get drawn in games like this. You think, one more over and then we'll know what the outcome's going to be, and then a wicket falls and the result's in doubt. And slowly but surely, every single member of the staff working at the bar appeared, the kitchen staff appeared. No serving was getting done because everybody was crowded around the television, and it felt like one of those moments where, as every wicket that fell in South Africa's run chase, it felt that more and more people were coming, and that everybody was, dare I say it, running around the West Indies. And it was just one of those moments where you feel like the whole sort of country and the whole region's coming together for a common cause, and that's a lovely thing to see, and it always makes you feel excited and more into the event that you're watching. And so for me, that was a lovely thing.
Beautiful. I think that's enough from us. We've got another game to get to, and we had the one last night. They keep on coming, and they keep on being excellent. The final word, T20 World Cup Daily, the end of day 23, as we're about to rip into day 24. Geoff Lemon, and from TMS, Henry Moeran. We'll see you next time.